So after your last lengthy stint into the Kinahans, I suppose the MV Matthew was happening in the middle as that was being prepared, and you decided to go again.
Yeah, so the last time I was in here with Tim Robinson, the two of us, and Darragh as well, had a role in making the series on the Kinahans for the BBC, the 4-part series. And in the middle of making that, the whole MV Matthew thing popped up. And from the very beginning of that, inevitably the Kinahan name was floating around, excuse the pun. It took a while, and eventually, as you know, the guards eventually said, we believe the Kinahans had a role in this. And in fact, in the programme we've just made, the cocaine mothership, Seamus Boland of the Guards says 100%, absolutely.
Yes, because there's always a joke, and they actually make it themselves, the Kinahans and their associates, that every drug bust that happens in Ireland is linked to Daniel Kinahan. And it probably is a reason for that. But as the MV Matthew unfolded, and your documentary tells it really from start to finish, you have that confirmation of the Kinahans' involvement, but also even watching it, and I've heard all those facts, you get a picture of the scale of the operation that these people are involved in, the connections they have, the amount of money. I mean, they're buying a huge multi-million euro trawler to bring this drugs in, or it's not a trawler. So give us a rundown, I suppose, of what has happened with the MV Matthew, and where it begun and when this cocaine is first.
Well, I'll let Darragh do this, because he did quite a bit of the tracking. I mean, there's so much, as usual, there's so much material that doesn't make the film. But maybe if Darragh picks it up with whenever the MV Matthew begins its journey off Curacao and Guyana in South America, and it's what they call spoofing, and it's gone round in this circle. But Darragh, what about the cost of the overall venture?
The guards have told us, Joe O'Reilly and Seamus Boland have told us that the estimated cost of the whole operation was between 20 and 25 million euros. I mean, that's an awful lot of money.
Huge amount.
But that cost would have been split, we think, between different criminal groups. So it wouldn't have just been one group that would have taken the hit. And of course, if they've lost the money there, they may very well make it on the next number of trips that will presumably get through. But yeah, it begins in August 2023. There's a ship is purchased for around, we think, about 10 million sterling, so about 11 million euros. And it is fronted by a wonderful glossy website.
Yes.
But there's actually only one ship attached to this website, and this supposed shipping firm. A crew are put together. Now, there's two elements of the crew. There's the crew that are working essentially for the drug shipment, and there's the crew that are ordinary Filipino sailors making sure the engines work. Right?
And they wouldn't have known anything about it.
They didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
In fact, evidence is given that when the ship was loaded with the drugs, that the Filipino crew members, most of them were Filipino, were basically given a party, given booze, given whatever, and they were distracted while off the coast of Guyana, the ship was loaded up by men, the court was told, who were armed with guns. But before we get to this point, the select crew members, those who are 6 of whom were convicted ultimately in Dublin, another 2 were engaged in the daughter ship, the trawler. We can get to them in a moment.
Yeah.
But 6 folk were flown to Dubai, where they met with the gang masters, the boss men, and they were then flown from there by various different routes and slightly different times for each of them to Venezuela, and then to the island of Curacao, where they boarded the ship, and then in August 2023, and then started this journey down along the southeast coast of Venezuela, down to as far as Guyana. Now, at this stage, they started engaging in what Stephen has described as spoofing. So every ship has to put out an automatic signal, AAS signal, just letting people know where it is, because it's a big vehicle, a big vessel on the sea for safety as much as anything else. But it was sending out false signals.
Right.
They had downloaded a piece of software which allowed them to send an incorrect signal up to the computers in the sky. But when you examine those, you see that the signal they were that was representing their voyage were either in absolutely straight lines or in complete circles, which are mathematically impossible, mechanically impossible for ships to travel that way, because ships just don't turn on a sixpence, right? So that was one of the indications to the watching law enforcement agencies of MAOC, of the NC, the DEA, and the
guards.
The guards were involved a little bit later.
Okay.
Though I think one of the guards who was working based in South America at the time may very well have been brought in on some of this. But the national, the NCA, the National Crime Agency in the UK, was also involved at this particular early stage. And so then the ship heads across the Atlantic. MAOC, the boss of MAOC, just retired from that role after we spoke to him last month. Assured told us that they're watching as many as 600 vessels around the world that they suspect are at one point or another going to be sending cocaine across the Atlantic. Some of that will be going to Africa and then shipped onto Europe. Some of it will be going directly to Europe. But that's as many ships as
and does it say that
started watching it
daily, like they're watching 600
daily,
ships?
So daily. That's quite astonishing, isn't it?
It is quite astonishing when I heard that figure there last night on the programme. I mean, it's incredible, really. And of course, even I think the number, I can't remember the number of tons, because there was ultimately, was it 2 tons of cocaine found on the MV Matthew?
2.2 tons, yeah.
Out of, it's only a tiny percentage of the amount of cocaine that comes into Europe every year.
Well, for example, I mean, one of the things we learned from the National Crime Agency in the UK was that in Britain, people are consuming, and they put this in weight. I find this astonishing. 117 tons of cocaine is consumed in Britain annually. Last year's figures, right?
Yeah.
That's an astonishing amount of cocaine. And has to, despite all the efforts of law enforcement in Ireland and in Britain and in Europe, this cocaine is still landing. 117 tons actually consumed.
So effectively, the MV Matthew is 1 week's cocaine supply for the UK. I mean, if you look at it that way, if you multiply by 52, so I mean,
your math.
Well,
very quick.
Well, it could be incorrect now, hopefully, but hopefully not. I mean, so it's leaving South America, but the whole time this is being this journey, every step of the way is being controlled from Dubai.
Absolutely. Dubai, there was a guy in Dubai who called himself Captain Noah. Now, he's the most prominent of the directors of the shipment from Dubai, but there were others. In fact, we believe there was, we don't know this man's name, but we believe from our sources that there was at least one Scotsman heavily involved in the leadership element of this.
Right.
Kind of the headquarters cell, if you think about this, and I'm sure everyone knows this by now, these cartels are working in cells. So the guys on the ship don't know even what the mothership, they don't know what daughtership they're going to meet.
No.
The guys on the daughtership don't have a clue what the name of the mothership is going to be.
Yeah.
Those names, that information isn't exchanged until just hours before they're meant to have their rendezvous. So the ship is trundling across the Atlantic, but whatever, 15 knots, 11, 15 knots, and it's being watched. But the Irish authorities at this stage, they've got really good intelligence suggesting something is going to happen in the southwest, ultimately involved in the purchase of a trawler. And
because that information's coming kind of simultaneously rather than...
It's separately. And simultaneous.
Yeah.
And it involves the Garda Síochána and Irish Customs. And they share that information. They then put in an operation in Castletownbere, where everything is coming to a focus, around the purchase of a trawler at the Castlemore for about 300,000 euro.
It's probably worth saying that the guards, as we understand it, had 2 strands of intelligence.
Yes.
They were feeding in, and we believe the customs had 1 strand of intelligence.
Right.
And they joined together. They identified this man who they believe and would say is Stephen Boyd, who we name in the programme.
Yeah.
And we don't know if Stephen Boyd had a wider role in this whole thing than beyond just coming down to facilitate the purchase of this trawler. But
we do know he flew in from Dubai, and we knew ultimately he flew out of Dubai after after overseeing the purchase of the trawler. Now, we did try to speak to him, but he didn't respond.
So he comes in from Dubai and it's directly into Ireland, is it?
He flies directly into Ireland about 11 days before the MV Matthew operation begins.
Yeah.
The trawl on the Castlemore. He actually goes down, as we understand it, to Castletown Bear. And then he leaves Castletown Bear and heads up to Dublin and has a bit of a jolly up here for a while, and then goes back down to Castletown Bear. And this time he meets up with Vitaly Lapa and Jamie Harbrun, who are the two guys who end up on the Castlemore.
What do we know about Stephen Boyd? I mean, he looks quite fresh-faced, kind of young sort of man.
We just know he facilitated the purchase, and that could have been it.
Yeah.
He left the country and the guards let him leave the country because they couldn't intercept him, because they had to let the MV Matthew operation roll and let it come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
The lovely detail, though, they didn't know where he was going to go.
Yeah.
But they followed him. They thought he could be going to set up the landing point of the drugs or whatever on the east coast of Ireland. Nobody went straight in his rental car, straight to Dublin Airport and purchased a first-class ticket.
Did he?
Back to Dubai. And I just love that little...
Which you wouldn't be allowed to buy a first-class ticket working for the BBC, I would imagine, would you? They're
not on those budgets.
No.
Niall, I assure you. I suppose when you're trying to figure out a little bit about him, if you go and look for him, there's, as people can now too, there's an old LinkedIn page, but he just disappeared off social media. It's like he doesn't exist out there.
Yeah.
And he's a bit like the Kinahans in that respect. He's in Dubai, we believe.
Yeah.
We believe he has been back in the UK at some point, but we couldn't reach him and we tried.
Yeah. And of course, if you're going to disappear, Dubai is a good place as long as
we know.
You have the money. So ultimately on the MV Matthew, there's a collection, as you said, of ordinary shipmen, but there's also a collection of people that ultimately ended up in prison in this country, including people from Iran, from the Philippines. What do we know about their role? And some of them have given some descriptions from their own perspective in court.
Well, Darragh sat in a lot of the court, and I was there for a fair bit of it as well. And indeed, Nicola was there for the sentencing, and they are like a motley crew. Iranian, Ukrainian, there's a Dutchman, there's a Filipino, and these are just basic working guys who were looking for a few quid.
Yeah, they're people involved in the maritime business, effectively.
But one of them wasn't.
One of them wasn't.
One of them wasn't.
That was
Dutch Jimmy guy.
Dutch Jimmy. Kamali, he was interesting because he appears to be the cartel's man on board. I think you'll have come across this before.
Yes.
You'll find that in these shipments, there's someone there looking after the boss's interests.
Right.
And he was going to get paid quite a lot of money. No one else was going to get paid more than 50,000 or a little bit more than 50,000. And that was Solhal Jelve, the skipper of the Matthew. That was what he was promised. And of course, that's what he was. He was found with just about 53 or 54,000 euros or dollars. I can't remember which. When he was lifted to Waterford Hospital on the basis that he was injured. Of course, he wasn't injured at all, and that he tried to escape, somewhat comically jumping off a table where he was being examined and making a dash for the door, but the guards were there waiting for him.
So you also in the programme, Darragh, you go into the Iranian link, because that was one of the things the guards certainly stressed during the court case, this Iranian nexus that was involved in the purchase of the drugs and the operation of the MV Matthew. And it's one of the things we started reporting on about a year ago, that connection the Kinahans had, or just that the American officials really are making between the Kinahans, Hezbollah, I suppose, and ultimately then the Iranian regime. What do we know about that connection in regard to the MV Matthew?
Well, if we step back a moment, this will be stuff you guys have been reporting for quite some time, and we did it in the documentary series. And the Americans, when they sanctioned the Kinahans, the Treasury Department in America said that they were working with the Iranians. Yeah. And we know there's this nexus, as you say, where Iran, Hezbollah, they've got involved, apparently. It's almost 2 decades that they've been involved in moving drugs around the globe to make money, but also to pump cocaine into Western society and stabilize it. It's a win-win for them. So what we found out was that the Iranians that are part of this MV Matthew operation. Two of them, we established, are affiliated to the Islamic Republic of Iran shipping line group.
Right.
Mouthful, but that group has been sanctioned as well by the Americans for allegedly smuggling weapons. And so what you're starting to see there is the two of these guys, a guy called Madi Bordbar, who was Captain Noah directing from Dubai, and Sohail Jelvi, who was the skipper on board. They were working for this shipping, or had been working for the shipping group in the end. So you can see their connections to the Iranian state.
Yeah.
They're involved in this operation, and the Kinahans are linked in this operation. So we think this is some of the most concrete evidence yet linking the Kinahans and people in the Iranian state.
I think the term was used to me was that they were affiliated with this shipping group. There was a third man on board who was also affiliated with the shipping group. So that kind of gave us a sense of this kind of nexus.
Yeah.
But going back for a second, because I think just want to tell you about one interesting thing. When we featured in the film, Joe O'Reilly tells us, so the Irish police, they've got this evidence, they've got this intelligence. They're down in Castletownbere, the Gardaí are down in Castletownbere from 3 days before the trawler leaves on the Friday, and they're watching everything and anything that moves. But the guards then went to Mayock.
Yeah.
And Mayock, the Maritime Analysis and Operations Centre, as we know, they basically organised the policing of the transatlantic drug trade, and went to Mayock and said, what do you guys have coming? We've got this daughter ship.
Yeah.
Do you have a mothership? And Mayock came back and said, okay, we've got 3. No, hold on. Get rid of that third one. No. 2. No, get rid of that guy. No, we got the 1. This guy, the MB Matthew. That looks like the best one. So 3 went to 2, went to 1, and that stage joint task force was up and working in Dublin. The customs and defence and Gardaí, and they then put together their team and put together their strategy, and of course, ultimately, it was successful.
Ultimately, and people may have seen the videos of the Navy intercepting the vehicle or intercepting the vessel, but the concept of a mothership bringing cocaine into Ireland, like, while it's not new, and we've spoken many times about some of the old yachts landing cocaine on the coast of Cork. But I think through the 2010s, at least, the majority of the cocaine that was coming into this country was coming from ports like in Belgium or in Holland. It had come from South America on container ships. Then it was being split up. And you saw that in the Thomas Bomber Kavanagh operation that you both worked on extensively, where the cocaine has landed in Europe and then it was effectively being bought by Lurry around. But we have seen a change in that trend. You certainly look at that in your documentary, where these motherships, it seems, have become the more favoured method of transport, and possibly because of that huge crackdown from Dutch officials on the ports of Rotterdam and also in Belgium.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify what amount of the drugs is coming in through what we call the at-sea drop-off method. And it's not exclusive to Ireland.
No,
it's happening off the coast of Britain. It's happening off the Western European coast as well. But it's new. But it's new in an Irish sense. Whatever we saw in the 90s and the 90s, this is new. And Seamus Boland makes the point over the last couple of years. We've seen this increased effort to smuggle stuff into Ireland through the at-sea drop-off methods. But we can't say definitively. It's kind of makes common sense. It's common sense, really. We don't know what amount is still going through the big European ports. Be certain much of it still is.
Yes.
It's just that they are trying new routes because the European authorities have tightened up in all the big ports, in particular Rotterdam and Antwerp.
So, and of course, the at-sea drop-offs probably are helped by technology, tracking technology and all of that. That probably makes that slightly more practical. And of course, you're right. Like, they have to try every route. They don't just focus in on one route because if something goes wrong. Of course, there's huge losses. But you do get a stark, I suppose, in some of the statistics you use, a stark reality of how difficult it is to police the Irish coastline. I think the documentary says that like 16% of Europe's open waters are Irish waters, and of course we're not a heavily militarized country. Obviously the UK with a huge traditional navy and armed forces would have a huge amount of resources to police their coastline relative to Ireland, because we are a small neutral country.
Well, one of the things that pops up in the film is you can see where the directors of the operation in Dubai are instructing the skipper, who is trying to avoid a storm that's coming into skipper of the Matthew, and he's wanting to head north up the Irish Sea, which effectively would have brought him into UK waters, and he's ordered not to do that, and he's told that there will be the Irish Coast Guard only have VHF radios. The British Coast Guards have boats too, and the Irish authorities, when they heard that, of course, in the aftermath, there's a bit of a giggle.
Yeah,
and Seamus Boland makes the point that, look, this was they were testing. They thought we didn't have the resources to do it. And one of the things the guards would say is that any time they have been asked to or been given the intelligence to act on, they've acted on it. It's not like that they're sitting around unable to act on it. And that's true, of course, for the Irish Defence Forces too. When they've had the information, they've been able to act on it. What the problem is, though, is that the Irish Navy, for example, cannot at the moment put out essentially more than 2 ships at any one time.
Okay.
That clearly is not ideal.
No.
And when we spoke to Darragh Kerwin, he admitted that's not ideal. Of course, it's clearly not ideal.
No.
Eugene Ryan, who would have been former naval commander, it's not in the program, but Eugene Ryan pointed out that back in the day, in the noughties, when he was involved in several interdictions at sea, which you've covered already, they had they would want 3 naval ships or patrol boats included, engaged in operations like the MV Matthew. So, that gives you a sense of the problems. Now, that's not to say, of course, that the Irish Navy didn't pull off the job. It did pull off the job. It's not to say the Irish Air Corps weren't able to supply the helicopter. They did supply the helicopter, but they had 6 helicopters capable of carrying out that operation. 5 were in the shop getting fixed.
Yeah.
They only had 1 available, and that actually was at the time purposed to work for the health service as an emergency helicopter. Was based in Athlone at the time, so that would be taken down from Athlone at the beginning of this operation as they were preparing the strategy, and the stretchers thrown out and guns put in. That isn't ideal.
No, it's not. And of course, I do think you see the professionalism of our Navy and of our guards when you see the operation carried out. But like, resources, of course, are an issue. Is there a belief that the Irish coastline is being targeted? Obviously, the Kinahans, that's their home country, and they'll have the capacity maybe to get people living in the country to pick up stuff on the other end. Do we have a sense of that?
This is a tricky one.
Yeah.
So when we spoke to Mayock, we put it to them that the Irish coastline is being particularly targeted.
Yeah.
And that Ireland is seen as a weak spot. Mayock said, well, look, there's targeting of the coastlines across Europe going on. It's not just Ireland.
No.
And that there's a lack of resources, Mayock would say, across Europe.
Yeah.
So there's a lack. I mean, it's pointed out in the film that last year they had 100 ships that they believe were bringing cocaine. They had definitive intelligence, and they couldn't intercept them because they didn't have the ships in Europe to go out and intercept. So that's a lack of resources.
Yeah.
Is Ireland being targeted? I think it probably is.
Yeah.
To maybe a slightly more of an extent than other parts of Europe, because the word's out.
Yeah.
It's public debate. It's been raised in Europe. It's been raised in the UN with the stuff about the Russian cables and so on.
Yeah.
The word is out that Ireland has only 1 or 2 naval ships for all this coastline. So I suspect it is being targeted, but within the context of when Rotterdam and Antwerp are tightening up security, they're looking for other methods to get in around coastlines. That all of Europe's being targeted. And there's another point here, which is the cocaine production in South America is up 53% in the last year.
Yeah.
They're churning it out. Europe now consumes more cocaine than Northern Ireland. The demand is there. and they need to get it in.
Yeah, and of course Europe has become so much more important a market for the South American cartels than it ever used to be.
That's true.
The Europeans aren't going to start blowing up the boats either, like Donald Trump might do. But it has become probably a better market really than the US, which is becoming far more complicated. I suppose
we were told that Europe is now the more important market, and it's where they would prefer to get their stuff through to. In fact, cocaine consumption in America, I think I read, has come down. In Europe, it's still rising. So, but in terms of this thing about Ireland being targeted, Ireland clearly is being targeted, but so too are other countries. Right?
Exactly.
But Ireland clearly is being targeted. Britain's border force told us that that they even said right now at-sea drop-offs are running at an all-time high. Around the coast of Britain, and that's featured in, I think, the Panorama. So, because we had two programs out. One was a spotlight, one is a panorama, 16 minutes or thereabouts, and both programs was the same, just to explain. So, but since 2022, there have been at least six that we know of, 6 attempts to bring cocaine into and through Ireland. And one of them, the guards are across those. The guards know of them, and the guards are investigating. But it's not that the guards aren't aware of them.
No.
The guards are, some of them, there's court cases active right now about them, and there's many people have been convicted already.
Yes.
Can I make an intervention on behalf of the BBC?
You can, of course, go on.
So can I interrupt this broadcast?
Yes, go on.
Just to say that the Irish government, when we raised this issue with the Irish government about the fact that the Irish state spends less than any other European or EU nation on defence, in terms of GDP against GDP. The Irish government says, look, they maintain a continuous presence and vigilance within the maritime domain. They've said that funding for defence is increasing by 600 million euros, so it's going to go up 55%. And that there are a number of significant initiatives underway that have resulted in a stabilisation of naval service strength. In other words, they're trying to get staffing up.
Yeah. So look, we're an island nation at the end of the day. So of course our coastline is a lot more. We have to worry about it a lot more than Germany or some country like that. Now, one of the fascinating parts, Darragh, of the documentary was the famous or infamous bales of cocaine washing up on Donegal. That it always was something we reported on, but didn't really have much details. There was a couple of occasions. There was one in Wexford, wasn't there, where a load of people were, I think it was walking their dog, and they came across bales of cocaine, and it happened in Donegal as well. There was a lot of visitors to the beach in the immediate aftermath, and there was a lot of memes going on, but we never really knew much details about where this had come from. Obviously, the suspicion was the almost inevitability that it had come from a drop off. But you have a good number of extra details, really. In
the trawler, which was used as a daughter ship. It was bought in a Donegal port, and one of the buyers was Scottish. The other guy seemed to be from County Louth.
Yeah.
So that brought us again to a Scottish connection, by the way.
Yeah.
And this man was definitely not the aforementioned person of interest number one that popped up in Castletownbere.
Yeah, Mr. Boyd.
This is an older man.
Yeah.
And anyway, so they bought the trawler there. I can tell you the bit more of the detail than we need to be having the program without crossing a boundary. They took the trawler, small fishing boat really, paying 100,000 euros cash, drove around to a place called Dunfanaghy, Port na Blas, small little port, northwest Donegal, and hung about there for a couple of days. They actually they had to bring some more fuel, to get some more fuel on board. They got some more fuel. And then they headed out in July 2023 to sea. Now, to meet up with the mothership. We know the mothership's name, but we can't identify it.
Right.
But the mothership had come from South America, and it was coming around the coast of Northwest Ireland. So if you know Tory Island or Arran Island, Burtonport, that sort of way, Northwest Donegal. So about 25 miles off the Irish coast. Its path intersects with the daughter ship's path.
Right.
Now, I've seen, but can't use, material which basically illustrates exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And the ship then carries on to its final destination, and the daughter ship comes back into Donegal, ultimately landing at Maharorty Pier. Now, we've been told by our sources that about a half a ton of cocaine came in there. Now, they did lose 60 kilos to the waves. We're not sure why that happened, but we can see when you look at the bales that were recovered, they were wrapped up in black plastic and tied up with heavy ropes.
Yeah.
And when the guards eventually got to the trawler tied up in Maharorty Pier a couple of days after the handover, they found, or the drop off, they found black plastic and lots of ropes in the below decks in the trawler. So they knew the kind of most of the drugs had been landed. And Seamus Boland actually tells us that in the program, that they were pretty certain it was a Nazi drop off, and that they were pretty certain that drugs had actually been landed.
So the majority, the vast majority, entered into the system.
Yes. Now, we believe that that we've been told that the Kinahans were involved in that.
Yeah.
Again, we've also been told that there was a Scottish connection, which makes sense because we've already come across them. I've already been told about a guy who was helping to buy the boat. So a Scottish connection there. Now, that we don't, the Scottish connection, we try to drill into it with our sources. And what they would tell us only is that there was a significant, major organised criminal group from Scotland involved in that. I put a couple of names to them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't confirm or deny.
Yeah. And of course, we've spoken many times, myself and Nicola, about the connection with the Lions organised crime group in Scotland. But, and those connections between the Kinahans and Scottish gangs have featured in the Scottish Parliament. There's, it's very well established. But it may be the case at this transnational level that there's other people involved in these drug trafficking plots that are almost unknown. Do we have any sense of how it works? So we know the Kinahans are involved. We know there's this Iranian connection. We know these Scottish people as well. Is there a belief, for example, that Donegal drop off, that there was further shipments of cocaine dropped off at a later point again, or how?
I don't know that, but no. I do know that Seamus Boland said something very interesting to us in an interview. And Stephen will tell you about that and give you the context to it, because Stephen has been fascinated by this, by what Seamus said in one particular quote.
Oh, well, in the film, Seamus Boland says, look, it was Irish gangs at a certain level. So he's obviously talking about the Kinahan, but it's probably some of the other gangs like the family and so on.
Yeah.
You talk about often, have invited the international cartels into Ireland.
Yeah.
They've opened the door to them.
Yeah.
As you probably know, in the MV Matthew case, it's believed that this wasn't just the Kinahans, but there was a number of cartels coming together. Yeah. I think German, Dutch, maybe even Turkish have been mentioned.
Yeah.
Seamus describes it in the program. He imagines them almost sitting around in like a conference room in Dubai, not just Captain Noah there. We know that there were other people in that room, other people sending text messages. So it's all about these networks and connections. I'm going to be really boring again, by the way, and do the BBC. And
say it, absolutely.
I have to bring these lines with me. So we wrote to the Kinahans about the Donegal wash-up.
Yeah.
We wrote to them about the MV Matthew and, via their solicitor. We didn't get a response. I mean, this is the same solicitor in the documentary series who we wrote to, who did reply at the time, and he said that these are all rumors and theories about the Kinahans and their involvement in organised crime, and they've never been tested in court.
Yeah.
There's been massive investigation, Operation Shovel, and that folded. That would be there.
That would be there. Yeah. So, I mean, if you think about all these gangs sitting around, agreeing, I suppose, to invest some money, and then there is some of these criminal groups that provide, I suppose, a specialist service, isn't it? Either the movement of money, the logistics, the purchase of ships, and they do it together, partly, I think, to eliminate risk, because if you have 100 ships coming, if you are the sole investor, in one of them, you're in trouble. But if you spread
the risk,
I mean, I think that is what the that is the belief of roughly how it's structured anyway, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, when we sat and watched in court, Detective Keith Halley, who was a lead investigator in this and gave a lot of the evidence, he talked about the cell structure a lot.
Yeah.
So Darragh was referring to it there in that the people on the Castlemore trawler didn't know the MV Matthew. The MV Matthew didn't even know what the Castlemore was called or who they were.
Yeah.
I mean, Dubai knew, but these people didn't know each other. And everything is broken down so that it minimizes risk, and that goes on up the chain in terms of minimizing risk in terms of losses. They'll take the hit, 25 million, potentially 25 million on this whole operation, but split between cartels. You know, one gets taken out, but another 5 or 6 get through, and that's how it works. It's built into their operational model that they'll take the hit.
But I think though, like that would have been a hit.
I think so.
It's not that they've got all this money that they won't miss all that money. The cocaine that they paid for, the ship that they paid for, the trawler that they paid for. I've been told that the trawler, for example, that was eventually impounded at Maharorty, that for the one they bought for 100,000, that they actually wanted to use that trawler again. There's evidence. It wasn't that they're having bought it, they abandoned it, they were prepared to lose their 100K. No, they wanted that trawler for other operations. You can be absolutely certain that the MV Matthew, if it hadn't been seized and the operation hadn't been run as it was, that ship would still be on the high seas today, plying its trade with cocaine. So I suppose the point is that yes, they are able to take hits. They'll still be in business, but that will have hurt them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as well, even more so, like when they invest that cash, which they would have had to do to buy the MV Matthew. I mean, was it 10 million or whatever?
We're estimating about 10 million, 11 million euros. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's being sold again for, is it 9.5 million now by the state to recoup its losses.
I think they're in the process of selling it right now. I think the deal is they're waiting for Panama to sort out the papers.
Exactly, it's just at that final point. So that's still a huge amount of money and a huge amount of cash to invest, because a lot of these things then end up on the credit system. Amazingly, the criminal underworld runs on credit. You wouldn't think that would be a good way to run it. But so I mean, the final I suppose outcome of this is that there's a large number of people have ended up in prison in this country. They've gone on trial. They've been given very healthy sentences. Is there more to come, prosecution-wise, or is
there is another phase of the investigation? And at the Cork press conference, when the state, rightly so, made a big point, they took the media down to the WBH, the ship that went and did the naval ship that did the interdiction.
Yeah.
They made a point there, and Interpol were there to say, we're already in the next phase of the investigation, which is looking at the cartels that were involved and looking at people like Captain Noah, Matty Boardbar, who was, he was named in court. By the way, we did try to contact him as well. No luck there in getting a response from him. But that is the next phase of it. Where that goes, I don't really know, because you know better than me. But, you start hitting up against this wall of Dubai.
Yeah.
And we know where that takes us.
But in the first place, that was a huge success. I mean, the guards would say our job is to get people behind bars.
100%.
So 8 people jailed, a total of 129 years. And of course, there are other cases ongoing, which we can't really speak about, but there are other cases going where some people have already, in fact, pleaded guilty.
Yeah.
So the guards can claim, and the authorities can claim rightly, that if they have the information, if they have the intelligence, they can run their operations. And that's what the evidence shows.
It does. And of course, the other bit it shows is, and we don't know what happens, but all of these operations, they really have to be done by digital communications. And that is a thing that puts these criminal organizations at real risk ultimately.
Well, there's a great moment in the text where the Captain Noah, the boss running affairs from Dubai, or one of the guys running affairs, we think he is effectively the chief commander of the operation. He says, "Now, guys, get rid of your phones. Get rid of your phones."
Yeah.
And of course, many of them didn't. So those phones then were key to the investigation and key to some of the great stuff you can see in the film.
They were also key to making a decent film now. A lot of it had been put out there. generously by the guards, and you could see it online already. And we pulled it together with fresh interviews and fresh information. But as you know, I mean, it's just gold dust for
it is.
For
it's funny,
makers.
some of it, and then the legal advice they're giving is wrong as well about get to international waters and they can't go near you. And it's that kind
I'm
of
having a heart attack.
Have
confidence, boys. Show them some action.
But it was all on signal, was it? Like it wasn't even on an encrypted.
That's interesting because going back to Keith Halley, Keith Halley told the story in court about how he emphasized the nature, the cell nature, where the guys were all being kept in the dark about whatever's going on over there. So cells, think silos, they're being siloed, so they only know what they absolutely need to know.
Yeah.
But they set up two separate app groups, one for the trawler people, which I think was the Signal app, isn't that correct?
So, and the WhatsApp group was the
which is WhatsApp, of course, which again is like really
WhatsApp so the WhatsApp group was for everyone on the MV Matthew. The Signal group was just for those on the trawler.
Yeah.
Now you got to think about it. They're trying to organise a meet in on the edge of the Irish Sea, the Celtic Sea, Irish Sea, which doesn't happen. Of course, they end up having to go into the Irish Sea. But you would have thought you would have found a better way to communicate.
You would have, like, I've WhatsApp groups of parents and neighbours. It wasn't.
And then the electrics go on the trawler. So the trawler's lost all signal, right?
Yeah.
So there's a tracker on board, actually, on the trawler. The guards have managed to get a tracker on board.
Yeah.
But the electrics go, so they lose their Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
They've got a Starlink satellite system on board, but they can't use it because they don't have the power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's almost hilarious when the skipper of the Matthew, he's listening to the Coast Guard.
Yeah,
and they were meant to have met at this point with the Castlemore a little bit earlier, right? That this same evening, and he goes to Dubai on WhatsApp, and he says there's been this ship, Castlemar, he calls it, that has that looks like it's in trouble. It's the Coast Guard, Coast Guard rescue operation. And the bold Mehdi Borbar, what does he reply? There's 3 text messages come back.
Captain Noah.
What does
seriously? And that's our ship. The skipper of the MV Matthew has no idea that that's the trawler they're meant to be meeting.
Well, that's one of those little moments where you can see the whole thing starting to
sophisticated, but not sophisticated.
Yeah, but see, that's the funny thing, because for all the sophistication, they're probably relying on people that are, by their nature, a bit chaotic, or else they wouldn't be involved in transnational drug shipping.
Jamie Harbin, the English guy on the trawler, is a case in point, because he's no sea legs. Doesn't know anything about sailing and fishing. He's been stuck on there apparently because to pay off a drug debt.
Right.
Hasn't really got a clue what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's where some of this starts to fall apart.
I mean, he comes into Ireland using as a foot passenger on a ferry from Britain to Dublin, and he's using his own credit card. To pay for his transport across
literally leaving
across the Irish Sea,
a digital trail.
And the other guy, Vitaly Lampa, we came across something which is quite fascinating. We weren't able to get into the program. Part of the problem with the program that you got 30 minutes to tell the story. He's trying to cram a lot in. So people looking at it, vested interest looking at it, will say, well, why didn't you do this, Darragh? And Stephen, why didn't you do that? Well, we're trying to get an awful lot in. But one, to me, I love this story. Vitaly Lampa, he was involved in what the authorities in Britain believed to have been another at-sea drop-off operation of the southeast of England, which went wrong in 2023. So the same year that he was involved in crewing the trawler out to the MV Matthew. Well, that same Vitaly Lampa, guess what happened to him sometime in the late spring, early summer of 2023 off the southeast of England? He had to be rescued by the British Coast Guard. They had to come out to rescue him, right? So, I mean, like, you'd be thinking, I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in.
No, it's time to get a better quality of drug smugglers
in his lap. But he had to be rescued. So he got rescued twice in 2023.
It is
the first time there were no drugs on board. Second time, obviously, he was banged to rights.
So this is obviously, you've done your first work on the Kinahans. When was that, Darragh?
2019,
2019, that was
2020.
2020, was it?
When you started?
2020, January 2021.
We started.
It's a panorama on the Kinahans we did.
And why did the Kinahans appeal to use to do? Like, Well, I mean, I yeah.
And
Yeah.
we all know, don't we?
Yeah.
But we're looking at doing some other ventures at the moment with the BBC in terms of other organised crime. And, we're just worried that you can't live up to the Kinahans because it just is the story. It keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Will be the levels that it goes to.
Yeah.
And, we're stratospheric now with this stuff.
Yeah.
There's an insatiable appetite and fascination.
Yeah.
You guys know better than me.
Yeah.
You've made more of a living off it now.
Well, we have. But we were a minority sport, and now
we thought we'd join in.
Now we're in the Olympics, I suppose you might say.
I think the fascinating things about the Kinahans, one of the most fascinating things is that it's where they came from.
Yeah.
Nicola, I think, said it to us wonderfully in that documentary a couple of years ago. She said he chose crime.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't born into it. He wasn't from the wrong end of the streets or something where crime was kind of like part of your daily routine. I mean, he was brought up in a very respectable middle class area of Dublin. A former Irish Taoiseach lived in the very same house that his family were in the 1950s. So, he as Nicola said, he chose crime.
Well, 100%. I mean, he went to the same secondary school, Christy Kinahan Senior, as my own father, and many people I would have known.
As did Jimmy Joyce, as some people call him in that neck. Yeah. James Joyce went to that same school for a short period.
O'Connell's, yeah. So look, I mean, it's the scale that they reached, I suppose, isn't it? It's just the absolute rise, and we're still, of course, waiting to see the fall. Do we expect that to happen? Do you have a...
Well, no better sources than you guys, because Nicola has the best sources of all.
Yeah.
But I would just say the guards are very confident.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think there is a confidence there, but let's just see, because Sean McGovern being brought back was a test case.
Yeah.
And we'll see if Daniel Kinahan comes back.
The legal framework is now there.
It is, but what happens in Dubai is still a mystery, isn't it? I mean, you've probably tried to investigate parts of what's going on in Dubai, and it's just not a normal country, is it?
Well, the thing is, you can't really, as journalists, go there and work openly, so that leaves you on the back foot. I think Darragh's been in before once on a program, and we've tried on these investigations to use other journalists to make some inroads. Yeah. There's been some paperwork that's floated around in terms of business dealings, but it's very difficult.
It is, but I think it's only going one way. Okay, well, so I mean, I suppose the final thing is the program probably isn't available down here. Is it on the BBC player? But it may become available.
Well, these things have so it was on BBC Northern Ireland. It's already been out, and it would have been available down here Monday evening. But for those who've missed it, I shouldn't encourage this.
No,
don't. You're not going to.
Okay.
We
won't.
These things do tend.
I want to protect. I'm going to protect my colleague before he says go look for it somewhere else.
We don't want to ruin careers.
But I do think I did hear that it is likely to go on BBC News Channel.
Yeah, on the YouTube channel maybe, is it? Or the news channel?
BBC News Channel, which will be, they will put it in the half-hour slots between the bulletins. So
24-hour news channel.
24-hour news channel. That would then be available to an Irish audience.
Okay, and we'll highlight it when it does come up. So thanks very much, and no doubt we'll have you on again after your next venture. Thank you.
Thank you, Niall.
Thank you very much, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.